Welcome to Heart, where we break the silence, bridge the gaps, and bring real conversations about mental health to the forefront. I'm your host, Lee Yaffe, founder and director of The Long Short Road. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Heart. I'm grateful to be here with you all. It's been a while since we recorded a new episode. This is going to be different than what we've done on previous shows. To be honest, I've been avoiding this a little bit because this is hard, what I'm going to be sharing today, and also super necessary. Super necessary, and we can't not talk about it anymore. But before we dive into this, let's take a moment to ground ourselves and take a breath. As you might hear, I'm a little congested and under the weather, so I'm going to modify my breathing today, which actually, Ashgacha Pratis, becomes an opportunity for us to talk about modifying self-care. Ha! So because I'm having a hard time breathing in and out through my nose, I'm going to modify and breathe out in and out through my mouth. Often we think that self-care needs to be very rigid, very specific. You find what works and then you keep sticking to it. But the truth is that people are right? We change, our bodies change, especially women, right? Like our bodies change every month. We're not the same person on day one as we are on day 30. Men, women, all of us, we all go through different changes. And so our way of taking care of ourselves is not always going to be so linear because nothing in life is, right? But we get very stuck and very rigid and thinking like, I have to take care of myself in this way. And if it doesn't work, then I can't do it. So this is a good opportunity for us to think about how we can be flexible in our approach of taking care of ourselves. So I'm going to breathe in and out through my mouth. You're welcome to do whatever modification works best for you. Eyes open, eyes closed, hands on your chest, hands on your lap, hands on a steering wheel. It doesn't matter, right? Just be flexible with your approach to yourself and how you take care of yourself. So let's just take one breath here. And again, get settled into our bodies. Maybe this is the first time you're making real contact with your body all day. It's definitely mine. Okay, so I want to address today from what I'm seeing and share with you my perspective from having my boots on the ground in suicide prevention and crisis management in the Jewish community. Obviously, the work that we do at the Long Short Road is not only, specific to the Jewish community, but a large part of the work that we do is. And I'm seeing very specific things happening in our community that I think need to be addressed that it doesn't feel like other people are addressing them. And I realized something actually this weekend. So many of you may know that the Lubavitch community in Israel and worldwide experienced a tragedy, a suicide death of a young boy, 17-year-old boy, recently. I'm recording this on November 3rd, so just a couple of days ago, as of this recording, it was 3 or 4 days ago. And our warm line has been ringing off the hook. I mean, it always rings off the hook, but more so in the last couple of days, specifically with people who don't know how to respond to news like this because it's very, triggering and upsetting and difficult news to process, right? But also feeling helpless and wanting to know, like, what can we do? How can we help? How can we get involved? What are we supposed to do to prevent future tragedies? And as I'm having these conversations with people, I realized something that is very unique about what we've been doing at the Long Short Road for the last 6 years. I have spoken to well over 1,000 people over the last 6 years, one-on-one. Like, yes, in workshops also, well over 10,000 people have been trained by me and by us. But I'm talking about one-on-one conversations with people who have reached out on the warm line or via email or other channels to reach out for support. And I'm realizing as I'm having these conversations this weekend with many, many people, that I am the sole keeper of all of these individuals' stories. That people are coming in immense pain and confusion and struggling with psychic, right, intense psychological pain of their psyche, of their neshama. And I have had the schus to bear witness and listen to all of them. And so I just want to start today, here now, by giving voice to the people who have spent years opening up to me about their suicidality and what they're struggling with. Because, and I'm not saying this from a place of judgment, I'm saying this from a place of we need to be honest with what's happening in our community. I truly believe that the Jewish community and the Orthodox communities and the ultra-Orthodox communities have done an incredible job of promoting positive mental health. We have unbelievable organizations. If there's one thing that Am Yisrael knows what to do, when there's an issue, we mobilize and we throw money and time and resources. Isn't that what I do, right? Isn't that why the Long Short Road exists? Yeah. And, and as much progress as we've made, as great as we are as on talking about trauma and not fearing talking about abuse anymore and recognizing how life circumstances impact our well-being and our relationships impact our well-being, and we're willing to talk about this stuff, suicide remains a stigmatized, shameful issue across the board. It doesn't matter if you're Chabad or Satmar or Mon-Orthodox or Reform. Across the board, if you're a layperson or a mental health professional, suicide seems to be the issue that nobody wants to touch because we are terrified of people who are suicidal. Because we look at them and we say, they're different than us, they're sick, they're messed up, they're da 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 da. And I hear this all the time. I was in shul on Shabbos this week, and a woman came over to me and said, would you say that people who are suicidal are like the fringe of society, like the outcasts of society, the people who are really, really unwell? And even just that question, and I knew she meant it with, honesty and compassion and curious, just genuinely trying to understand, like, what is the issue that we're dealing with? Suicide does not discriminate. I think that one of the issues in our community is that we look at suicide, the issue of suicide and people who struggle with suicidality as them being broken and having some kind of moral flaw that makes them this way, rather than looking at suicide as immense, immense psychological pain, psychic. I've mentioned that word previously. This was a term that was coined by Edwin Schneidman in the 1980s. The immense psychological pain that a person feels. And one of the things that I think is very not understood is, as counterintuitive as it sounds and may seem, is that suicide is actually our nervous system's way of seeking safety when in immense distress, right? So many of you may be familiar with this concept of our limbic system going into, survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn or faint. And suicidality and suicidal thoughts are one of those expressions of the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn or faint, that the pain is too much. We become narrowed in on, this is what it's going to be like forever. I have to seek safety. I have to feel safer. I don't feel safe in this world. I need out. And what I'm hearing from people across the board, teenagers of both genders, rabbis, rebbitzins, community leaders, educators, principals of schools, parents, people who look and act the part in our community, who are showing up every day and are leading members of our society, that this is an issue that they are struggling with too. I don't know if you can hear this in my voice, and I'm really trying to but I'm angry. I'm angry. Anger is a surface emotion. What's under that anger? Disappointment. So much disappointment in the fact that we've done so much work in trying to be more compassionate and more understanding and more loving towards people who are struggling with mental health issues. But as soon as you talk about suicide, then we're out. And then we just apply shame across the board. It's a sin, and they can't be buried in a Jewish cemetery, and you can't sit shiva for them. By the way, none of that is true, according to how we view halachically, how we view suicide in modern times, right? According to a modern lens. I feel disappointed and I feel frustrated that no matter how much progress we've made as a society, we are still causing people to feel that their issues are a fatal flaw that cannot be solved. And I want to tell you another thing. Over the last couple of days following this unfortunate suicide death of this young boy in Israel, I've been hearing horribly shaming, stigmatizing behavior and language. Educators have shared with me that this is how it's being addressed in schools. I'm hearing this from students. I'm hearing this from the parent body. I'm hearing this from everyone across the board. People keep asking me, oh, should we talk about what happened? Should we acknowledge that this young boy died by suicide? How? Yeah, and the short answer is yes. The long answer is it also depends on how you talk about it, right? What is the issue? When we perpetuate language, right? When we use language that perpetuates stigma and we say things that are so derogatory to the individual who was struggling and who died, right? What we're doing is basically saying to everyone, this is an issue that we don't touch. And if any of you are struggling with it, we don't want to know because something is wrong with you and you're crazy. We have to do better as a community in how we address this issue. Acting like people who are struggling with suicide are broken and incapable of healing and dangerous to others. No wonder we have so many people walking around who are struggling who will never acknowledge this, right? And again, I just want to give acknowledgement to how much work we've done. And we've done a lot in our society to destigmatize mental health. And there are so many organizations in the frum world, in the Jewish world, that help add light to and shed light on these issues. We still got a lot of work to do. We've still got a lot of work to do. And so I just want to put voice for one moment to the people who are struggling and tell you what I'm hearing from them. What they want, what people who are struggling with any challenge, reliving trauma, working on healing their histories of abuse, struggling with suicidality because of these challenges that they faced in the past or are currently facing. Maybe it's because of a mental health challenge that they're struggling with. What I am hearing from hundreds of people who reach out to our warm line on a regular basis is they want to feel, I mean, we could break it down to my favorite concept, Dan Siegel's 4 S's, right? From the book, The Power of Showing Up. He uses it to talk about attachment. When I had him on the show, we actually talked about it through the lens of thinking about how to support people who are suicidal. But, even though people who are struggling might not voice it exactly this way, this is what I've come to see that people are asking for. Okay, they want to feel safe, they want to feel seen, they want to feel soothed, and they want to feel secure. So safe means that they want to feel physically and emotionally safe with the people who they are bringing this up to. If I'm a 15-year-old girl or a 17-year-old boy, and I'm having thoughts of killing myself, first of all, we have to think about how terrifying that is for someone. It's not a pleasant place to be. You think that people who are struggling like feeling that way? Definitely not, right? And again, it's a nervous system response to how am I getting out of this pain? Safe means if I'm a young kid or even an adult and I am disclosing to a friend or a colleague or a parent or my spouse or my therapist that I'm struggling and thinking about killing myself, I want to know that this person is a safe person for me. So they're not going to yell at me. They're not going to blame me. They're not going to shame me and make me feel even worse. They're not going to become a source of threat to me, which very often, unfortunately, is what happens, right? I've had people say to me dozens of times, I've never disclosed this information to my therapist because I know they would hospitalize me right away. I would never disclose this information to my spouse because they'll leave me. I will never disclose this to ABC because then I won't get into school. I won't get into the seminary I want. My siblings' shidduchim will be ruined. There is a lack of safety that we provide for people who are struggling. We got to change that. Okay, the second S is seen. They want to be seen. So what does seen mean? Seen doesn't mean, okay, I recognize you're struggling. Thanks for sharing with me. Let's get you some therapy. Let's get you some medication. Let's pass you on to someone who can help. I believe that those things are necessary, right? Like we don't just stop at seeing people and say, okay, I'm going to see you and me seeing you is going to heal you. No, people have to do the work and they need those professional outlets, and I'm all for that. We have to be willing to sit in the discomfort of being with people and meeting them where they are at. This is the most uncomfortable thing for people. Nobody wants to sit with someone in the dark. We want to turn the light on. We want to drag them out of there. We want to tell them it's not so bad. You're being dramatic. Your life is worth living. You have so much to live for, blah, 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 blah. See them. Meet them where they are. If someone says to you, I am struggling, don't tell them all the reasons why they shouldn't be struggling and how good they have it and to have emunah and bitachon and hashgacha, Hashem is taking care of them. They don't feel that way right now. They don't. So see them. Really take the time to get to know their inner world without judgment, without blame. Okay? The third S is soothed. So let's talk about brain science for a second, because I think this is a really important aspect of understanding how to help someone feel soothed. Okay. So our brains are very complicated. I'm not going to go into a whole neuroscience assessment here right now. But here's how I want you to think about this. Okay, so we can break it down. Again, this is a Dan Siegel thing. Anyone who's listened to this show or has heard me speak know that I'm the president of the Dan Siegel fan club. Very proud to be the unofficial president of the unofficial fan club. But he breaks it down with this concept of talking about the brain as a two-story house. So you can imagine the first floor of the house is your limbic region, so like down here. Okay, so the area that's responsible for fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, right? So that's the part of our brain that helps us survive, that acts before it thinks. Okay, and then you have the second story of the house, which is up here, the front, the specifically the middle prefrontal cortex. Okay, so this area of the brain right here behind our forehead is the area of the brain that is responsible for helping us modulate our emotions, have empathy for ourselves and others, be able to think logically and clearly, rationally about our decisions, to think before we act. Okay? So what's interesting, if you think about how the brain works, this area, the middle prefrontal cortex and the cortex in general, is sitting on top of the limbic system, so what we call subcortical area of the brain. Okay? I know I'm not like saying this in this most super scientific way, just, follow along as best as you can. But basically, what happens is this. Our prefrontal cortex, when we are in a good, calm state of mind, our prefrontal cortex is kind of controlling what's happening underneath. So keeping our survival mechanism in check and helping us realize that we're not in threat or in danger. Now, when a person feels overwhelmed to the point of like no return, what happens is that the prefrontal cortex goes offline and our survival mechanism comes into play at full speed, because that's its job. When we feel threat, when we feel danger, it's the limbic system's job to say, okay, I'm going to take over now. We're either going to fight this, we're going to flight, we're going to run away, we're going to freeze, or we're going to fawn and faint and play dead. So what are we going to do? Right? And it becomes challenging, impossible to access this higher level of thinking. And I want you to stop for a moment and think about this. We all know what this feels like. When you're feeling anxiety about something and you're totally out of your mind and it feels way more blown out of proportion than even you feel is necessary. And sometimes you come back into your mind and get calm eventually, and you're like, wow, who was that person who took over? Like, I feel like somebody took over me. That didn't feel like it was me. When someone is in that state of mind, in the brain flip, I'm operating from survival mode, I don't feel safe, and I need to get out of this pain as fast as possible, even through means that are dangerous or potentially life-threatening or life-ending, right? What they need in order to return to balance is to feel soothed. You can't go into problem solving with a person who's not able to access their higher level of thinking, right? Think about what happens when a toddler has a tantrum, right? You try to say, what's wrong? Let me give you a lollipop. Let me distract you. Let me sing you a silly song. Let me tell you it's not a big deal. And the fact that your orange juice spilled, we'll get you a new one. What's the big deal? It's a big deal to them because right now they're in a survival mode brain. When we're in a place of survival, what we need is to feel soothed. But if our higher level of functioning that's supposed to help us get to a place of soothing is not working, then what do we need? To borrow it from someone else. So this is where the soothing comes in. When I, as a 15-year-old or 16-year-old kid, if I'm struggling and I feel terrified of my own thoughts of suicide, and I go to an adult or I go to another person and I say, help, I'm struggling, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, and you immediately start going into problem solving and throwing solutions at them, they can't hear you. They can't hear you. It's not that we are doing that, people will say to me, like, it's not that I, am trying to negate what they're feeling. I just see that they're in so much pain and I want to fix it. We can't fix it. Okay, that's not our job. Our job is to help them feel that sense of inner security so that they can then tap into their internal resources, even just temporarily, to be able to do something different for now, right? I can make a choice to not act on my suicidal thoughts for now and do something else. But they can't access that part of themselves when they're totally flipped out. They need us to be that soothing, calm, compassionate, regulated space for them. And they borrow our nervous system. I can't remember who, maybe it was Pat Ogden who coined this term of borrowing the nervous system. I think it is. They need to borrow our nervous system when they are feeling that way. Why am I talking about this? Why am I sharing this? Because across the board, time and time again, I have spoken to thousands of people who are struggling of all ages and stages of life. And it's not the outliers of our community. Okay. Yeah. Are there people whose suicidality is so intense that it's difficult for them to get out of bed or function or lead a life where they feel is meaningful and purposeful and fulfilling? Yeah. But it's not everybody. And I think that's a really important distinction that we are lacking in our community. We look at certain people, we're like, oh, they couldn't possibly be struggling because Shaitl's on perfect makeup, gorgeous clothes, kids look the part, house looks the part. You don't know what's going on in people's lives. So take that, piece out of our minds of like, oh, it's only the outliers, it's only the outcasts of our community who are struggling. It is not. It's not. And across the board, time and time again, what I'm hearing from people that they are lacking is this feeling of being safe, seen, and soothed, which leads to a sense of security. When we have those first three, when I can feel safe addressing what's going on, where I feel that someone sees my inner world, and helps me regulate and lets me borrow their calm and regulated nervous system so that I can return to balance, then I can gain a little bit of a sense of security of, okay, these thoughts that I'm experiencing may be very intense and maybe even drastic, right? And dangerous. I can make another choice for now. Now, I know that I'm making it sound to be so simple in explaining it. It's not. It's very challenging to sit with someone who's in immense amount of pain and there's nothing you can do about it, right? I've taken all the calls over the last 6 years, every single call that has come into the Long Short Roads warm line system, I have taken single-handedly. It's been a lot. It's been a lot, I'm not gonna lie. One of the things that I've learned from this experience is, sometimes I come into this and I'm like, okay, Hashem, I'm an empty vessel. I'm a keli to hold this person's pain. I'm not gonna fix it. I'm not gonna try to solve it. I might not be able to solve it, right? Sometimes people call with problems that are not easily solvable, right? So we think like, okay, so what are we actually doing? How are we actually helping? Do not underestimate the power of what happens when you show up for people when they're in pain. Yeah, you might not be able to solve the problem that they're facing, but you help them feel a little less alone and you help them feel felt. And that is a huge, huge, huge deal. The relief of connection, the relief of being seen could save a life. It can and it does. And I've seen it firsthand. So what I'm seeing right now about what's happening in our world, in the frum world, and again, this is Chabad, Satmar, Modern Orthodox, Hamish, Modern Orthodox, whoever, all of us, every community, every single major Jewish community has been impacted by more than one suicide this year. Crown Heights, multiple cities in Florida, Atlanta, Lakewood, Borough Park, Rockland County, California, Texas. None of us are immune to this, y'all. Like people tell me all the time. Sometimes I'll reach out to schools to do a workshop or I'll post about workshops that I'm teaching and people say to me like, "Why are you talking about this? This isn't an issue in our community." And I'm like, "Well, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but it is." So what I'm seeing, having my boots on the ground in this way is there's a lot of pain. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about suicide that is perpetuating that pain. And there's a lot of fear and stigmatizing of people who are struggling with suicide that just adds, it's like pouring salt on an open wound. We can do better. We can do better in the way that we are showing up for people. So I'm going to task you all with this. This community that is listening here to this show tonight, I'm tasking you with the opportunity, because it really is an opportunity, to look within and think about how can I provide those things to people who are struggling in my life. Start right now. Start with providing those things, and you don't wait until a crisis is happening to help someone feel safe, seen, and soothed. How do you don't wait until an emergency is happening to be like, oh wait, what's the plan? Start practicing, right? I want to segue into one other thing which is tied into this. Many of you may have seen over social media or our newsletter if you receive our newsletter, or my WhatsApp status if you follow us on WhatsApp, is that last week, after years and years of taking hundreds of calls text messages and text messages a year to our warm line. We, Baruch Hashem, I ran our inaugural warm line training with 8 women from around the country of all walks of religious life who came together for 2.5 days. They took time off of work and school and away from their families to come to Pennsylvania and learn with me about how we could expand this necessary service for the community. And it's interesting, yes, I am the founder and director of this organization. I have a very hard time talking about myself, and I have a very hard time talking about the work that I do. And this is also bigger than me, and this is beyond what one person can do alone. Over the years, the way that the Warm Line happened and the way that it was really built up was organically. When I would go into communities to teach on suicide prevention and to empower community with tools for suicide prevention skills, inevitably, organically, people want to talk about it more. And there are always, in every single class, I've taught over 600 classes around the country and around the world via Zoom. Inevitably, in those workshops, there will always be a minimum of 1, if not 2, if not 5 people who are actively struggling with suicide themselves and are like, I have nowhere to go to talk to anyone about this. So they would call me. Originally, when these phone calls started, it was to my cell phone because the organization was just getting off the ground. We didn't have like a formal number for the organization. And it was kind of just this organic buildup. This year alone, as of recording today's show, today is November 3rd. So I don't know when you all are seeing this, but November 3rd, 2025, I have taken single-handedly over 400 calls this year. Some of them are repeat callers. They're not all unique callers. A lot of them are. And many of them are people that I speak to one time and then never hear from again. Some of them are people that call once a week. Some of them are people that call twice a week who are just looking for a place to feel safe, seen, and soothed. So it was getting to the point about a year ago where there were multiple signs that I needed to expand this service, multiple signs that this is a service that needs to exist in the community and needs to be bigger than what one person can offer by themselves. And I'll be honest with you all, I avoided this like you would not believe. I felt like the prophet Yonah running away from Hashem. Really. Every time the opportunity came up to try to talk about expanding this, I ran for the hills because the responsibility, when it's just on me and the responsibility is to take care of all of these people, yeah, it's a huge, awesome, taxing responsibility, but I don't have to think about what is the ramifications of having other people answer these calls. It has gotten to the point where it is not safe for the people who are struggling anymore to have just one person to rely on. So though I went kicking and screaming, and though I almost canceled this warm line training multiple times, including like 2 weeks leading up to it, I told the volunteers on the first day, I was like, guys, you don't know what a miracle it is that we made it here because I almost canceled this a bunch of times. Here's what I'm realizing. Our community needs a place where suicide is not stigmatized, where talking about their suicidal pain is not going to lead to a tailspin of blame and judgment and shame and making them feel like a terrible person. So over the last week of October, we had this unbelievable schos to have 8 women from around the country. I put together what was a dream retreat in a dream space with an incredible group of women, many of whom have been impacted by suicide directly, to make this change in the community and to make history. How is it possible that we have referral services, tons of referral services? We don't have an emotional support line in the Frum community. So guess what? Now we do. I'm using this platform as the opportunity to announce that we have expanded the warm line. We will now have callers, volunteers available throughout the day. I'm realizing very quickly, even though we're only a week into onboarding people, that 8 volunteers is not enough. So I will probably be putting together another training in the next 2 months. So if you're interested in volunteering for this service, you can reach out to us, info@thelongshortroad.com, and we'll put you on the waiting list, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But here's what I want to tell you all. Our community is suffering. People in our community are suffering. And I'm angry about it. And I'm tired of it. And I'm angry at Hashem. Like, I'm just gonna be honest with you all. I'm angry at Hashem. And I know that things need to be done differently, and I see how badly people are hurting. And so we're doing something about it. An emotional support service that is here for you, 12 hours a day, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., Sunday through Friday. We will, God willing, be expanding it into Shabbos as well in the coming months as we get more volunteers. We need more people to help us with this. We need more resources to help us with this. So I'm turning to all of you. This is not just an opportunity for us to learn about how we can help people experience these 4 S's. We need people to get on board with this because this resource has to grow. This resource has to grow because there is a need for it. Klal Yisrael is hurting. And if we have the opportunity to help people, even just one time, anonymously, one time, make a difference in the way that somebody feels about themselves when they're struggling, we can't underestimate what kind of impact that could make. So the warm line is up. Phone calls are coming in. We have volunteers on board. We are here for you. The phone number, if you are struggling and need support, is 484-474-0544. Please reach out. I know how scary it could be. I just spoke to someone the other day who was like, I didn't want to call and I was so scared. And then you picked up the phone and I almost hung up because it was so frightening to make this call. I understand how vulnerable it could be. I said to someone the other day, like, I hate making phone calls and I run a phone service. Like, it's hard to be vulnerable with a total stranger, right? That being said, I know without a shadow of a doubt, I know it at the core of my being that this is a service that has to be expanded in the Frum community. And so we're doing it. We're doing it. And I want you all to come along for the journey with us. What do we need? We're going to need more volunteers in the next 6 to 8 months. So if you are interested in volunteering for this, please reach out to us. We need funds. I hate asking for money. The 1 or 2 times a year where I do big fundraisers, it's like it takes all the energy out of me. But you know what? I can't be shy about this anymore. I want to scream it from the rooftops. We need resources to make this the robust service that I know it can be and that it needs to be to help save lives. So if you're listening to this video and you feel inspired to support us, please go to our website, www.thelongshortroad.org, and donate or reach out to us. We need the community support. We need you. We need to be partners in healing this world that feels so broken. I know that I have the immense bliss of running this organization and have been running this organization almost single-handedly for the last 6 years. It cannot go on like that anymore. It can't. Not only for the well-being of everyone else, but my well-being. I'm starting to feel the crack of holding all of these people who are feeling so broken. So get involved. Reach out to us. Again, if you want to volunteer, if you need your own support, if you want to donate or get involved in helping us build this out, let's do it together and we could really save lives. So thanks for being here with me, y'all. I know this was a very different episode than usual. This was very hard for me. I probably am not even going to go back to edit it and listen to it because I can't believe that I just shared all of that in this way, but I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing Am Yisrael struggle. And I feel like I have a moral obligation as someone who is on the receiving end of thousands of people's pain to share this pain with Am Yisrael so that we can hold them together. How are we going to heal the world? How are we going to bring Mashiach? By one person doing something? No, we all got to do it together. So I'm entrusting all of you and I'm going to empower all of you to think about how can you apply these skills of giving the 4 S's over to people in your life, whether or not they're struggling with an immense challenge or not, and think about how you can get involved with helping us because we need your support. Thank you all so much. Thanks for being here and see you all soon. Thank you for tuning in to Heart to Heart. If you or someone you love is struggling, please know there is hope and help is within reach. Since 2019, the Long Short Road has been walking alongside at-risk individuals, offering trauma-informed programs, a non-emergency hotline, and a community that fosters healing. No one has to go through this alone, and we are here for you. Discover how the Long Short Road is changing lives. Visit www.thelongshortroad.com or email us at info@thelongshortroad.com to learn more. You can be part of this mission. Sponsorship opportunities for Heart to Heart are available. Honor a loved one, support your community, and help us make mental wellness resources accessible to those who need them most. Until next time, remember, love and connection are the greatest healers. This is Lee Yaffe reminding you, hope is here, healing is possible, and you are never alone. Together, we're walking this long, short road to a brighter future.